Do you want a magic method that will allow your executive function to trigger on command? Well, me too, and hopefully by the end of this video you'll realize there is no such thing. I know, I'm disappointed too. However, the good news is that there are strategies that you can apply immediately to reduce the crushing weight of procrastination that you carry around with you. I'm going to talk about 5 strategies that I use to get to work. And if you stay till the end of the video, I'll teach you a small hack that I use to literally jumpstart my executive function. Clear! I don't like using the word lazy. You're not lazy. You're just untrained in the ways of doing things.
So by the end of this video, I hope you've learned not a magical spell that's going to trigger your executive function, but workable strategies to make it easier to get started.
So first off, I've always struggled with getting to work, especially with tasks that I'm not very interested in. For example, there's a lot of chores in the apartment.
But I discovered that one of the reasons why it's so difficult to get my executive function to fire is because there are additional subtasks in pretty much everything that I want to do.
So for example, if I want to do laundry, that's one task. And then I'll remember that I don't remember where I put the detergent, so now I have to look for it. So immediately, in like a millisecond, I now have 2 tasks to work on. I've duplicated my workload like this. And then I realized that I have to separate my white clothes from my colored clothes so that I don't ruin the clothes. I've tripled my workload. That's 3 tasks already.
In a few milliseconds, because that's how fast your brain works, in a few milliseconds, I've gone from I want to do 1 task to I need to do 3 tasks. So the idea here is that as long as you know what these hidden tasks are, you'll be better prepared to get to work.
If you go in already prepared to do 3 tasks instead of 1, then your brain is not going to collapse from discovering these new things along the way. Now, it's the same when trying to be creative, like when you're trying to write a novel or paint a picture or write a song. As long as you get all these extra tasks figured out, it'll reduce the resistance your own body has against doing the work. And this sort of effective task list that you create, especially on things that you do repeatedly, will in turn become sort of a habit or a routine that allows you to do these things almost automatically. The more you repeat it, the more you do it, the easier it's going to become. So the first strategy that I'm going to give you when you feel like collapsing, or when you feel like not getting up, or when you feel too heavy to do the thing, is to grab a notebook and write all these tasks down by hand. What's that going to do? Well, here's the thing. The first thing that it's going to do is it's going to slow your brain down.
If you have ADHD, one of the problems that we have is that our brains are incredibly fast. And since your brain needs to wait for your hand to catch up, writing these things by hand slows it down, gives you a better chance to absorb and remember what you're writing. And in this slowed down state, your brain will start remembering these other hidden tasks that you need to do, giving you a more accurate picture of what you need to do to complete a task.
Once you have all this written down, then you can use it as a checklist. You can modify it and write extra tasks on it and check off the ones that you finished. It's fun. And as long as you are honest with yourself when writing these down, you'll discover that there are things that are unknown and things that you may have forgotten. But once it's written down, you'll have a clear path from point A to point B. And that's going to allow you to diminish the resistance that you encounter when trying to work on a task. Number 2, simplify the tasks as much as possible.
Be honest with me, you too tend to overcomplicate things. Our ability to procrastinate is tied directly to our ability to complexify things. For example, I've been working on this YouTube channel for about a month. And one of the things that was very difficult at the beginning was trying to come up with B-roll, all these nice little shots that are inserted between my talking head shots. And I remember the very first time I shot B-roll, I had to take out an entire day for myself, go out to Paris, take some shots of the city, and come back.
And even with that sort of planning, I didn't have enough shots, so I had to do it twice. And I had to really plan ahead before I even left the house to shoot some B-roll to finish the video. So the first video that I made took about 2 weeks to complete, and that's just not sustainable as a system. How can I simplify that though?
Well, instead of going all the way out to the Eiffel Tower with my DSLR, sometimes I shoot footage of my walks with the dog in my neighborhood with my phone.
And that works fine as B-roll. And I've removed the extra complexity of having to leave the house on a 45-minute metro ride to even get some shots. Overcomplicating tasks makes it very difficult for people to get up and do a thing. Sometimes there are tasks that cannot be simplified though, so what do we do about those? Well, we split it up into smaller, more manageable tasks. And again, when you write this down by hand, it helps you conceptualize and better split larger tasks into smaller ones. Number 3, as someone with ADHD, I have zero ability to prioritize tasks, so every task looks critical to me. Now, there are some tasks that can be done faster. You've heard the phrase eat the frog first. Now, this is a productivity hack that teaches you that the way to be more engaged with work is by doing the most difficult or larger task first, and then the smaller ones, or at least the least important ones, after. But I found that in my case, it's the opposite that's true.
See, my brain does not physically process the dopamine I need to even get off the couch. So if I start with the most dopamine intensive task, I've already set myself up for failure.
But if I start with the smaller tasks first, the sense of accomplishment of finishing several things in a row will, in theory, provide me with enough dopamine to be able to tackle the bigger, most difficult tasks after. Number 4, setting up an environment that helps trigger or at least doesn't hinder your executive function. And by that I mean, yes, removing the clutter from your place of work, your desk, your office, your apartment. It's a lot easier to sit down and write a couple of pages of your novel if the work area is clear and you can set the laptop down.
So you can sit down with a glass of something and just write.
Instead of, and I remember a few months ago, my desk used to be filled with papers and toys and stuff like that. So visually, it would be overwhelming to look at, and my brain would be like, oh no, we have to take care of all this mess before I can sit down and put the laptop down and I can start to work. Now, working from your bed, working from your couch, working from a specific designated location like a desk where you can sit down and work on, having any of those things in a decluttered state helps a lot with removing the resistance of getting up to do some work. There is a snag though, and that is if you're not motivated enough about the thing that you're doing. So number 5 is to make sure you care about what you're doing. And I'm not saying you have to force yourself to care about it, but you do have to find an angle to care about. One of these angles that I've used before is, for example, if I don't care about the app that I'm working or the company that I'm working for, I find a way to care about what I'm learning or the people I'm working with or the product that we're selling or the client that's buying said product. One of those things is going to work as a motivator because my brain is going to be like, oh, okay, now I'm going to work on this thing because I'm curious as to what happens next or what I'm learning or how it's benefiting people. So you need to find that sort of hook for your brain to latch onto so it can go like, oh, okay, we are doing this for this reason. We're doing this so like maybe I can put it on my CV and the next potential employer can be like, oh yes, I like this guy, let's hire him. And this is the hardest one. This is the hardest obstacle to get past. Because if you find the motivation, all the tips that I just gave you will flow, making executive function easier to trigger. If you try these 5 things before you get to work, you'll find you'll be less likely to find yourself stuck on the couch. Because you're not lazy, you just need clarity. That's all. Clarity makes it a lot easier to get started on a project, on a task, on a chore. So once again, here's what you need to do.
Create a clear task list and write it down by hand to improve your retention and memory. Simplify the tasks to your basis skill level, relying only on things you can control and the tools you already have. Do the small tasks first. That's going to replenish your dopamine levels to a point where you can actually be like, oh, okay, I'll do the big thing now. And make sure your environment is set up to generate the least amount of visual noise so that you don't feel like, oh, I have to clean up before I can get to work. And finally, find an angle to care about as a hack for self-motivation. And that's how I get my executive function going.
Now here's that secret tip I mentioned though. There is a way to trick yourself into working.
For example, when I go to the gym, do I like going to the gym? No, it's exhausting. I'm old and tired and my body hurts everywhere when I go to the gym. I know it's good for me and I know I want to look good, but it is a very difficult habit to maintain.
So what's my trigger? My trigger is to change clothes.
I change from my street clothes to my gym clothes. And once I'm in my gym clothes and I'm pacing around the apartment, filling up my water bottle and getting my gym towel and doing all these small tasks to get ready to go to the gym, once I finish those, it's very hard for me to go, well, now I'm not going.
So all I need to do every morning that I go to the gym is create a mental task that is put on gym clothes. Once the gym clothes are on, my brain goes like, well, we've got the gym clothes on, we might as well go. And that's how I get stuff done. Sitting down at your desk could be another example of a trigger that could help you. Just the act of sitting down. Booting up a specific software like Photoshop or Scrivener or Logic Pro to get you started. Once that's on, it's going to take a lot more willpower for your brain to go like, oh, well, now I don't want to do it.
There's a hump in front of every task you want to start. Once you've gotten past that hump, you're going to be able to sit down and start working.
So find that one trigger. Find the one thing that's going to get you to say, all right, might as well. Because you don't need to always be excited about work. Most of the time, all right, screw it, we'll do just fine. And just fine is all you need.
Are there any other strategies that you use that you think would be helpful to other people? Please feel free to share in the comments. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, subscribing to the channel and giving it a like helps enormously.